for everybody who's always asking, how do I make money from my phone? How do I actually do this in real life, in real time? So yes, of course, I'm a pretty big advocate of treating this like a career, having professional level trade management on your virtual dedicated server or your virtual private server, having that kind of automatically managing the things you need. Huge advocate of that. Having said that, let's say you're out and about, you're at the beach, you're camping on a trail, you're doing your thing, you're shopping at the mall, you have, weekend obligations and you're trying to work on crypto, and let's say you just don't have the capacity to be in front of the computer as much as you need to, but you want to be able to capitalize on, obviously, the markets that are always moving. So what I would do is something like TradingView. TradingView.com has a free platform. Of course, there's some paid memberships that you can include, like they have more indicators, more alerts, and all that good stuff. But you can pick, I think, 2 to 4 different pairs and do something like this. So before I go into the alerts, first let's talk about what's on my screen. So on my screen, I've got ADX set at 10. That's my favorite go-to. As you guys know, it's my all-time favorite oscillator. Nothing custom, nothing is special. I think the 10 is a little bit of a lower number than what typically people use, but it gives you this melody of moving averages that includes a calculation for ATR, and it includes momentum. It's just, to me, as good as it gets. So yes, I love that. Huge confirmation piece, and yes, it keeps you out of crappy trades. Then, of course, we've got RSI, but, and this is a big but, don't use it the way most people use it. Don't look at overbought, oversold. Don't be looking at the 70s and the 80s. Instead, mark up that middle zone right here in the center between 45 and 55. I would typically make this gold, and I called it my golden zone a long time ago, but on this chart, it's purple, so we're just going to keep it as is. Up top, I've got some parabolic SARs, slightly customized settings, and then an 18 EMA. Really simple. Notice how I've got my 50 turned off and my 8 turned off as well. Now, the reason for that is this. For those of you guys who have traded with me for a long time, you know that I've got a couple of different ways of doing things, but they all really follow suit. You can, of course, take those earlier unconfirmed entries, but, and that's a big but, your accuracy is going to be pretty low. Like, your accuracy is not going to be as good as you want it. Your stop loss is going to be tight, but you're going to be losing a lot more. And for some people, their psychology just does not do well in that kind of arena. Then, of course, you can take your entries like what I do in my golden strategy, which is a lot more confirmed after an impulse, definitely with the direction that it's going for the most part, but it is later, and it does have a bigger cost and a bigger stop loss. So depending on where you're at, both styles work. This, what I'm getting ready to show you, is kind of an in-between. So I have the 18 on here. Again, nothing fancy. It does not take rocket science. You don't need some major cool thing from TradingView or anybody else for that matter. A simple 18 moving average, kind of that middle ground. What I would do is this. Go to the top, set up an alert. So I'm going to come up here. I'm going to go to add alert. It's going to look a little different if you're on your computer, but S&P on this exact broker. I'm going to say crossing the 18 moving average once per bar. I'm going to schedule this out for a couple of months and come back and revisit this eventually. I'm going to turn on my push notifications. I despise text messages, so I would definitely not, encourage that personally. I would prefer the push notifications to this app and or on the desktop personally. Hate emails, hate text messages, but ultimately it's up to you on how you want to do it. Notice how this is the 30-minute chart, and it's not really small, so you're not going to get so many of these that they're white noise. You're going to get just enough that you have a handful of trades in a week's time if you picked a couple of different pairs to go out and make some money. So I'm going to go ahead and hit create, and now every time that condition is met, whoopsie, I'll have to clean that in a little bit. I knew that. Maybe. There we go. Create. Every time that condition is met, I'm going to get a little alert, and all that alert is going to tell me is, hey, this is moving. It's not going to be my entry. It's not a trade idea. Then my job is to come to this chart and say, okay, are my conditions lining up? So let's take for example. At this point, my momentum is above where it needs to be. So my momentum is facing down, but it's still high, right? My buyers are just barely getting in control, which is exactly what I want. And we're coming into this golden zone. We're coming into that kind of neutral area, not quite yet broken through and confirmed, but this is kind of like that middle ground entry. So for example, if I wanted to enter here, let's see if I can't manage to do this on my phone. Wish me luck. I don't know. I can do this, I promise. I'm going to go to long position. Okay. Let's try. Whoopsie. Just hit OK. I'm going to drag this where I want it. If I was entering here, my stop loss is going to be at the swing low. I typically would be using the further stop loss. For those of you guys who know me, I don't mind a big stop loss because I do mind getting, knocked out quite often. So once we hit 1-to-1, one way or another, whoopsie, come on. Once we hit a 1-to-1 risk to reward, there we go. 1-to-1, I'm going to be protecting. I know that not everyone has access to the same kind of management that I do, but you guys can. It's on cooltradingtools.com. I did not create it. I just love the guy who did. Great tool. Genius by all means. So with that said, 1-to-1, I am definitely protected. No matter what, I'm not necessarily putting like my stop loss into profit, but I have scaled out of some of this position. So now I've got some of it out of risk and into my account. It's in my bank account kind of concept, right? From there, I'm going to use whatever management I've got in place based off of this strategy to let this trade run. At 1-to-1, I'm definitely protected. At 2-to-1, I can close out some more. Or of course, I can start some management that's going to be rule-based and just let this run. And you can do this over and over and over again. So there's one example. We'll just let it end off with a 3-to-1 if I can figure out this stinking app with my... There we go. We'll let it be 3-to-1. Close enough. You guys get the idea. Same kind of concept. So we're going to get quite a few alerts here. It's going to get a little bit choppy. So let's say we get an alert here. I'm going to go to my drawing tools. I'm going to get a short position. Gotcha. I'm going to go ahead and say, okay, at this point is where we would have got our alert. Now granted, we still need to see if the conditions are met. So we're going to go analyze that here in a second. But at this point, we get an alert saying, hey, price is now crossing the 18. This is not rocket science, and it's not the strategy. So at this point, we're going to come down and say, okay, we're in that golden zone. We've broken through. We're kind of retesting a little bit. I'd much rather like this area over here, but we'll get to that. So we're here. Sellers are just kind of not quite in control. They're fighting for control at this very second. But let's just say, hey, I'm overzealous, or now I don't want to look, and I know the higher time frame analysis, and I'm pretty confident. Let's see if I can't make it to where I can actually touch this stuff. It's not letting me. Gonna try though. Going to try. Again, my stop loss is going to be above structure. It's going to be a little hard to see. And at 1-to-1, remember, I am going to protect this trade in the methodology I find that suits me best. The rest of the time, I'm going to let this run. That's how I'm going to get the most out of each trade that I enter. Cool. Not all of these are going to win. This will probably end up being around 80 some odd % accuracy, which is enough, especially if you've got great management. And I could do this all day, and it would be a lot of fun for me because I'm a dork like that. But this is it. So in this area, you get your alert. Let's see if I can't drag this over. Let's quit being a silly head. My stop loss is going to be at the most previous swing low. If that swing low is too big, I'm going to say, hey, this trade is not for me. If there's not enough room from where I'm entering to where I'm going, I'm going to say, hey, this trade is not for me based off of volume or previous structure. Otherwise, if those conditions line up, and let's go see real quick now together, we're in that middle zone. I can live with that. Don't love the momentum here. The momentum, the white line on my ADX is kind of low. Sellers are still technically in control, so not in love with this one. So let's say I checked back a little bit later. I'm going to scoot this over if it will let me. And I'm okay, so I set an alert. Again, I want to take a look. I get another alert. And now I can say, hey, this is where I want to be. This is looking a lot more like I want it. Momentum is still a little low though, which is again why we use momentum, because it keeps us at a bad trade. So for this one, I'm deleting that. Those conditions don't really line up the way I want. So again, just move a little bit to the left. I'm going to find some of these other entries. We know we don't get the continuation. You need the continuation as well. And just make it as simple as you want. But that's a really good methodology for you to set up some alerts, manage your trades, always 1-to-1 or better, 1-to-2, 2-to-1 and 3-to-1. Great way to be. Easy peasy. If you have questions or comments on this, by all means, do post them, and I will do my best to answer. Otherwise, I hope you have a beautiful and happy trading day.